Welcome to another episode of the Next Generation podcast. Today I have Michelle Miller on with us, or as many of you might know her, or her followers might know her as the Farm Babe on social media platforms and everywhere else. I am so excited to have Michelle on with us today. She is just such an amazing advocate for agriculture, so knowledgeable in just all of her speaking topics and stuff like that. We're going to discuss not only her story today, but a little bit about just advocating for agriculture through social media and influence and off of social media and kind of what those all look like. So, Michelle, I would love it if you could just take it away and share a little bit about who you are and your story.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lauren. Yeah, I go as the Farm Babe on social media, my website, thefarmbabe.com, and I am an advocate, keynote speaker, author, social media influencer. I have a podcast myself, and also do events. So the founder of an event called the Farm Cruise. So we're doing the world's first floating farm conference in February. So hundreds of farmers coming together on a cruise ship, doing some farm tours in the islands, and just got some of the social media influencers in agriculture coming on the cruise as our headliners and lots of things going on. So I started the Farm Babe about 10 years ago as a way to better bridge the gap between consumers and farmers. I was a farmer at the time up in Northeast Iowa, and we grew corn and soybeans, had cattle and sheep. And I was in a relationship at the time. I was dating a farmer. Doug and I were together for almost 8 years. But before my time on the farm, I actually went to college in Los Angeles and got a degree in visual communication and worked for Gucci on Rodeo Drive. So my tagline is rodeo to the rodeo, because I know what it feels like to be an extreme city girl and fall victim to every myth under the sun when it comes to food and agriculture, to actually becoming a farmer and realizing that everything I thought I knew about agriculture was wrong. Um, I do apologize. I have a little bit of a cold today, so if I sound a little stuffy, I'm on antibiotics right now to try to clear this up. But yeah, it's just something that I started off as a personal blog, talking about what we were doing on the farm, and it just grew from there. So I didn't really have much of a farming background. My friends were farm kids. My hometown is Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And my friends got me involved in 4-H, and they were farm kids. So every day after school, we would ride horses and do chores. And I was always really into it. You know, I always liked it. My high school aptitude tests and teachers and guidance counselors, they were all like, okay, you need to be in agriculture. But instead of pursuing that career path was when I went into Los Angeles. I lived in downtown Chicago. And so, you know, my passion is giving science a bigger voice. I feel like a lot of consumers in urban areas don't always hear the farmer's side of the story. There's so much misinformation. So they're like, oh, you know, they're only hearing one side, and it's coming from the food companies or activist groups or people with an agenda or fear mongering clickbait headlines or somebody trying to sell you something. And they're not always considering the other side of the story, which is what I work really hard to give a stronger voice to.
Yeah, and you do a phenomenal job at it. I would love to
Thank
hear a
you.
little bit more, of course, about your story going from Rodeo Drive, being working for Gucci, and then now you're on a farm in Iowa, and life obviously changed pretty rapidly for you, and now you're a big advocate for agriculture. Can you just talk a little bit about that shift in your life and that time?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I lived in LA, I lived in downtown Chicago, and then I lived in Florida. And so I moved to Florida at the end of my 20s, and I was bartending on a beach and traveling the world. So I was really passionate about international travel in my 20s. I visited all 7 continents, and have been to 70 countries now. And so throughout that time, I became really fascinated with food and culture and people and where food comes from, and travel. I've always really loved travel and culture. And so when I was bartending in Pensacola Beach, I ended up dating Doug for, like I said, almost 8 years. So he was a farmer. He met me when I was his bartender. So believe it or not, sometimes when you hit on the bartender, it actually works. So I moved from Florida to Iowa, and I lived in Northeast Iowa and farmed with him. And then we broke up right around when COVID started. And then I moved back to Florida. So now I live on a timber property near Ocala, Gainesville area in a small town here. And so I'm back in Florida. So Single. I'm looking for a farmer, I'm looking for my next farm boy, whatever. I'm looking for a man in finance. That viral video, that video that went so viral with I'm looking for a man in farming, tractor. So yeah, so that's where I'm at now. Kind of started over during COVID, but I still, have a timber farm. So I'm learning about forestry and in the midst of hurricane cleanup right now as we speak, as I look out my window and see this mess. So it's cool because I get to travel nonstop. I want to still be a farmer, but I'm on the road probably 300 days a year as a keynote speaker and an advocate for farmers. And now I actually have a van. So I'm doing the camper van life thing, having a camper van custom built to continue to travel. And through that, I'm gonna like road trip and tell farmers stories and speak at events. So I instead of like flying and renting cars nonstop like I do, I decided to get a van and kind of also take it on the road a little bit. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and if you guys aren't following Michelle on social media, just like the transformation of this van and everything is very cool to see. So, like head over to her Instagram right now as long as you're not driving and go check it out because it is fascinating to see and such a fun and like unique and cool experience that like going from a bartender to working like with your ex on a farm and then now you're a major advocate for agriculture and just that journey that you've been on over the last 10 or so years and just building this platform and everything like that. I would love to dive into just the concept of influence and agriculture and what that kind of looks like, whether it be influence on social media or influence off of social media, and just kind of why farmers and ranchers need to get out there and use their spheres of influence.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a keynote speaker, my primary topic is called The Power of Influence on this very topic, which is so important. There's never been a more important time for farmers and ranchers to step up to the plate and fight against the misinformation. Farmers, the number of farms has dwindled. Farmers are 1% of the population, but 100% of people eat and 100% of people vote, or so we hope, or maybe we don't hope. um, but there's a lot of people out there that are telling the farmer's story that shaped perception and policy. And if we're not telling our stories, somebody else will, and we're not going to like it. So it's really up to us to have those conversations and not shy away from the tough topics. If policy passes that hurts our industry, that costs us billions, and we're losing farms. And as it stands, we're losing 3 acres of farmland every minute to urban development. And so the ability to understand and raise awareness to the importance of buying local, buying USA grown, supporting local USA agriculture whenever possible, and inspiring corporations to stand by us and support us. And we need strong buyers, and we need people to understand us so that when the big corporations are saying, well, why would we buy grapes from the US? We can get them from Peru for pennies on the dollar, leaving our farms in the dust. And so those are a lot of things I'm working on, is raising awareness on that and inspiring farmers through communication tips to better share what we do to improve policy and perception and to keep American agriculture alive and thriving.
Yeah. What are some of those communication tips that you have for farmers and ranchers out there to, like you said, continue to keep our agricultural community thriving?
Yeah, I think it's important to keep it real, and showcase you as a person. I think sometimes people look at big ag as like a blank, faceless corporation and saying, well, the soil's being destroyed. Like, I'm going to dive into some of the myths here, right? Of people believing that our food isn't safe or that it's drenched in chemicals or that it's GMO and it's bad or it's factory farm. I mean, these terms are thrown around like crazy. So raising awareness on why and where this information is coming from. And for farmers to just say, like, look, I'm a person, like, here I am. So be authentically you, share your face, share your farm, share who you are and what you're doing authentically, because authenticity always sells. And sharing that story with, whether it's helping people feel something, everybody likes to feel something. That's why we have movies with the hero and the villain, So helping people feel the good, the bad, and the ugly, the good news and the bad news of farming and what we do every day, and all of the hard work that it goes into producing the food on our plates. Therefore, creating more appreciation and awareness on maybe reducing food waste or being a better consumer, helping people realize like, if you can't afford the most expensive eggs or the most expensive produce, like that's okay because every farmer can do a great job. So the idea that conventional farmers don't care is asinine. And so sharing your story, and also another communication tip is collaboration, doing stuff like this, right? Now I'm sharing your podcast link, you're sharing myself, and we're cross posting on each other's platforms to help people learn from each other. So for farmers, putting yourself out there, collaborating with others in the space where you are sharing and collaborating on social media posts. Therefore, like for example, a lot of people have probably heard of Zach Johnson, the millennial farmer, probably the most followed farmer on YouTube. He and I did a collaboration post. I went to his farm. He tagged me on a post on his farm, and I got 5,000 followers overnight. So it's things like that that together, raising awareness can really go a long way. So those are just a few tips that I have to start off, by just not being afraid to showcase who you really are as a person.
Yeah, I think that that really gets to the root of it as well, is not being afraid to showcase who you are and be authentic and true to you, because that is the whole reason that people want to interact with you. They're not interacting with you because of necessarily the words that you're saying, but because of who you are as a person. And people want to know who you are. In a world that is full of social media and like just like the surface level stuff, people want the nitty and gritty. People want the rose colored glasses to be taken off and they want the real. And a big part of that is just staying true to you. And also, like, I'm not going to completely say that everyone is going to know what their thing is on social media or in the sphere of influence and stuff like that. It does take trial and error. It takes a while to figure out, okay, this is what I like sharing. This is what I don't like sharing. This is like how I can get true to myself. And it also takes building some confidence and stuff like that too, and getting in that realm. But can you share a little bit more about like using that influence in just our everyday lives, but then next out of going out of our everyday lives into the realm of social media?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, social media is a huge part of this, right? Because you can reach millions of people for free with the click of a button. But we have to give credit and a shout out to farmers that maybe have agritourism or are doing field trips or educational programs, or they're selling direct to consumer or doing farmers markets or doing some type of corporate marketing. I mean, because again, agriculture is all shapes and sizes, and we need to celebrate the small farms in our community as well as the large scale farms that supply to the Walmarts and Costco's of the world. So they all have a place. And it's really important to not demonize anybody, but just to raise awareness on like what's done, when, and why. So there's a number of ways you can do that. And fortunately for like commodity boards, they have marketing programs, you know, like the Idaho Potato Commission, where their job is to tell the story of Idaho potatoes and what makes them great. So as farmers, we have the power through not only our own farms and our own channels, through our own platforms, whatever that is, but also through marketing and boards and farm bureaus. And so there's a whole plethora of ways to do that, both in person and through social media. Hats off to people that do like school field trips and stuff too, you know, because it all starts with education. And sometimes now we're doing so much education with agriculture in schools compared to what we used to be. And I think there's more curriculums going into critical thinking. And because, you know, here we are talking about the next generation. You know, I'm in my 40s. And so coming from that millennial Gen X cusp, we were around before the internet. And so we've had to retrain ourselves to say, like, hey, not everything we read is going to be true. This isn't the library anymore. This isn't an encyclopedia anymore. And so what is the information saying? Where is it coming from? And kind of being able to debunk all of that is really important. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways. There's so many ways to communicate and have that power of influence, whether it's in the community or around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you just brought up that aspect too, that like power of influence doesn't necessarily mean it has to be an influencer on social media. It can be a power of influence in your community. It can be a power
Hmm.
of influence within your certain commodity groups. It can be that you partner with the Soybean Association or the Kansas Livestock Association or your state livestock association, and you're doing great things for them. And you have a private Instagram and a very private Facebook, and that is completely fine. That we
Yeah,
need all different realms of influence within agriculture. But I think the biggest thing is I don't care how you do it, just go do it. Just go share
yeah.
about agriculture, stand up for this industry because we need more people that aren't afraid to get out and share.
Yeah, absolutely. And I gotta say, it's so much easier with practice. When sometimes people are like, my voice doesn't matter, or when they think like they can't make a difference, or they're like scared because, well, what if we get the backlash or the haters? Like, screw them. Like that's such a small percentage of it. Like especially when you're doing what you're doing through social media and beyond, you're building a following. You're building people that are supporters. They're either coming to your farm or coming to your farm page or whatever that looks like. They're there because they want to be, and and people are always going to be in your corner once you build that community and that page. So you just have to do it, and you just have to do it. There's really no easier way to say it other than like the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, that's so important to remember is that like it's not going to be easy when you first start out. There's growing pains. There's like areas that you're going to have to be like, "Okay, I really enjoy talking about this," or "Oh, that was a flop," or "Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely did not share that fact correctly," or like we're going to screw up. But I think so many people let themselves get caught up in the fear of messing up or misrepresenting agriculture that they don't start or they don't do anything at all. They're too afraid of PETA or they're too afraid of the activist groups to even go out there and start sharing at all. And my thought process on it is, you know what? If PETA's commenting on my page, I'm doing something right. Like
Exactly.
I am doing something right because they find my sphere of influence significant enough to take time out of their day to go and try and do something like that. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's ways around that too. So if you do have like a little bit of negativity or whatever on your page, you can easily pivot and they'll get lost, right? So like if I do something about animal agriculture and get an influx of, vegan animal rights activists, extremists, whatever, my next post will be about like strawberries or something, right? And then it dissipates. So it's really easy. Like you have control of the narrative. So if you need a break, or like change the subject, easy, done.
yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit more about just your journey on social media and your journey of starting to become a major influencer on social media for just farming and agriculture in general?
Yeah, I started the Farm Babe over a decade ago, and it all started because, like I said, I used to be really misinformed with the whole rodeo to the rodeo tagline. And when I became an actual farmer in Iowa, I learned that everything I thought I knew was wrong. And the more I was learning, the more I was like, wow, like farmers were blowing my mind with what they were teaching me. And so I was finding misinformation online with other bloggers that were like, oh, GMOs are just drenched in toxic chemicals, whatever. To which I would respond and say, oh my gosh, I understand. I used to feel the same way. But let me just tell you, like, what farmers are doing is so great. Like, please come to the farm. I'd love to show you and tell you more about it. And I found this girl named the Food Babe, okay? And the Food Babe was out there just, oh my God, like so much misinformation. Like literally nothing she says is true. Like it's just terrible. And so she's like, oh, GMOs are just drenched in toxic chemicals. When I responded, she blocked me. So she blocked and banned me from her Facebook page within about 5 seconds of posting. Instead of having like a friendly conversation with me, I found a Facebook group called Banned by the Food Babe, which boasts 10,000 members. Okay. So I thought, if the Food Babe isn't going to let farmers talk about farming, I'm going to be the Farm Babe. And that's how it all started. So originally, it actually kind of started off as a joke. Like I was like, okay, this is just my blog and I'm just going to talk about what we're doing on the farm. And I was like debunking all of her crap and just debunking nonsense. So I made a name for myself as a mythbuster. And the more I was getting sucked into these conversations on Facebook about like, the naysayers, the more I was getting sucked into that, the more passionate I was becoming. And I did a post that talked about, like, how much Roundup do we spray on our Monsanto GMOs? Like, I just freaking put it out there because that's what we were doing. We were growing Monsanto GMOs, and people are like, at the time, that's the seeds we were using. And so people were like, oh, you're just forced to grow this and you've got to spray all these chemicals. And I was like, hold up. I did a post. I was like, we spray one day a year, maybe two, at the beginning of the growing season. And I was like, at a rate of 22 ounces per acre. I mean, let's see, this is 33 ounces, like less than one of these. And it's on an area of land the size of a football field. It's like two beer cans on an area of land the size of a football field. So it's so minimal. So everybody's freaking out thinking we're just dumping all these chemicals every day. And I'm like, yo, it's not that much on a football field once a year. Like, chill out. So I shared that in a much more polite, professional way on a post. I only had 100 followers, but that post went so viral and launched my career. So it reached 18 million people. That one post changed my life. People were reaching out to me. Media outlets were like, we want to post this. We want to publish this. Will you speak on our website? Will you speak at our event? Can we publish this on our website? Will you come talk to our group? Will you come educate our students? And it's just wild because, to our point of being an influencer, it's like just staying true to yourself and following what makes you tick, that creates valuable content for other people, is going to sell itself, and it's going to create opportunities that we never thought possible. So that's how it all started, was people just said, hey, will you come speak at our event? And I was like, okay, I've never done that before. Why not? But I shouldn't say I've never done that before, because I grew up on stage. I was always like singing, dancing, modeling, acting, music, theater. Like, the stage was my world. And I even took like college level public speaking courses in high school. So speaking's always been my jam. So being a public speaker was good because I was kind of prepped through that my whole life. But that's how it all started. And what started off as just a goofy Facebook page, I was able to turn it into a full-time LLC career within about a year and a half or 2 years of starting. And it's just grown from there. So now I'm like pivoting and changing with the times. You do what you got to do with events and relevance and video. And I have a full-fledged media brand now with employees and staff and an agency. And it's a lot, but it's amazing. And I wouldn't change it for nothing. I wouldn't have it any other way. So the message to other people and other farmers is like, man, like, get out there and do it, because even if you don't want to do it as a full-time career, it is an extra revenue stream. It is an extra way to diversify. It is one more way to bring revenue and opportunities to yourself as a farmer and to change the world. Like, it sounds cliche to be like, you can change the world. Anything you want to be, you can do. But you can. I'm sorry, you just can. Um, get out there and do it. It's so amazing. But that's how it
Yeah.
all started. That's how it all started. And the rest is history.
No, absolutely. And it really is just get out there and do it. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not, nothing is perfect. Go to Michelle's page. Like, she does not post perfect content. Like, she
No.
just posts what's going on in your life. Like, that's what you're posting, is the realness. Like, hey, this is my life. Hey, I went from being a farmer in Iowa to breaking up with my ex and now moving back to Florida, and now I'm building a van and like we're doing this.
Yeah.
But you're real. Like, you're not hiding behind the social media or anything like that. You're inviting people into your life, and you're inviting people to see that, like, hey, this is a realm of agriculture that like isn't talked about. Also, like, I'm gonna influence others within agriculture, but then I'm also gonna influence others to become what I'm doing right now. And it is so important that we have people out there that are debunking this misinformation, that are speaking out against the activist groups, that are going and doing all of these things, that we need agriculture to have a voice. We are only 2% of the population. And so we are going up against the 98. We need people within that 2% that are willing to take on that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because one of the statistics I like to share in my keynotes is like, okay, so there's like 1.9 million farms in America, right? Do you think it's safe to say, do you think it's fair to say that a third of them could be on social media? Do you think that's like a realistic number?
Yeah.
So do you? Do you?
Yeah, I genuinely
I'm
do.
asking you. I'm
Yeah,
asking you.
genuinely.
And that's a very conservative number. Would you agree?
Mhm. Yeah,
So if we're
absolutely.
taking so let's just say, for example, we take 633,000 farms, one third of American agriculture, American farms, and each one of them gets 1,000 followers. 1,000, easy, right? Easy, realistic number for one farm. Now we're reaching 633 million people on social media alone.
That's crazy.
That's that's like Elon Musk power. That's like Taylor Swift. Okay, you talk about the power of influence. Taylor Swift had a $600 million influence over the Super Bowl. $600 million was Taylor Swift's influence. Now, not only is she doing that, but did you know that Taylor Swift used to be one of the faces for the Got Milk campaign?
Yep.
What would happen if Taylor Swift was doing that now, right? Like, she was doing Got Milk 20 years ago when she was just getting her
Crazy.
start. Now here she is. Holy shit, the power of influence. But farmers, when we come together collectively and collaboratively, we can have that power of influence, which all of a sudden we're pushing back. Our voices are getting louder. We're doing the Netflix documentaries. We're getting our stories on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. We're doing this information. We're getting in front of media outlets. If anybody follows Derek Josie, TDF Honest Farming, he reached 260 million people on Facebook last year alone. That's just one farmer.
That's
Imagine what would
crazy.
happen if we all did content like this that had that reach. Prop 12 in California passed, and it costed the pork industry $18 billion. So what if we did that in every state? Colorado, there was the prop, I think it was it 308?
Yeah, I
Um,
believe so.
if 308 would have passed, that would have costed, you know what, I have these statistics written down and I don't have it on me like right this second. But if I remember correctly, is something, don't quote me, something like $871 million and like 3,000 jobs or something. Don't quote me on that. But this is what happens. Unfortunately, it didn't pass. But if that slaughterhouse ban were to happen, if they were to shut down the entire meat packing industry in Denver, which is what they were trying to do, imagine the ripple effect. If bad policy happens in one state, do not for 1 second think you are exempt from that happening in your state. The threats are there and they are real. However, do not ever, ever underestimate the power of your voice as a farmer with a seat at that table, because you can be just as powerful, if not more powerful.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And I love that you brought up the fact that, like, what if one third of the farming population had a social media and then had only 1,000 followers?
That's it.
So often we get caught up in, like, I only have 1,000 followers. Do you know what 1,000
No.
people in a room looks like? That's a lot of
Yeah,
people. Like
it is.
that's a lot of people. And it's in the realm of social media where people have millions of followers and stuff. Like I get it how we can look down on 1,000 followers, but if a third of the United States farm population had 1,000 followers, that's a shit ton of people. Like
Yeah,
that's
it
a lot
really
of
is.
people that we're reaching.
Yeah,
So we need to like not declassify ourselves and not look down on ourselves for only having that much too.
exactly. It's never a competition. It's always, they say, people at the top collaborate, people at the bottom compete.
Yes.
And it's once you have an established farming presence on social media, that's when you can get in with, the influence, the Joe Rogan. I mean, God, I would love to get on Joe Rogan, right? But just as one example of somebody who's very influential, that's when you now have the power to collaborate with with very influential people. So one of my biggest claims to fame is my Burger King story, but which we can talk about here in a moment. But as one example of Colorado of trying to not get the slaughterhouses shut down, I made friends with some wellness influencers on Instagram that I just really love. So Whitney Johns is somebody I followed for years. She has millions of followers. She is beautiful. She is funny. She is so cool. I love following her to the point where we became friends through social media, to the point where I said, "Hey, I'd love to bring you on a farm sometime." And she's like, "I would love that." So she did. She came out. I was in Denver. She came out with her boyfriend, who is now her fiance, and I took them to a farm. And they've always had wanted to go to a farm. But Chris just won the world championship in like bare knuckle. He's like UFC MMA type stuff. Like he's a professional celebrity, world record. Okay. Whitney, has millions of followers. And so them together, they're like powerhouses, right? So they come with me on this farm, we collaborate, we create content, and that ripple effect trickled down into anybody who's in the MMA, UFC, the gyms. I mean, because people in fitness, diet and exercise, they're very influential, but they're also meat eaters. They're also into diet and exercise and healthy living and healthy eating. So what happens now when all of them go to a farm and they say, I you know what I learned today? That we don't have to eat antibiotic free meat because it's all antibiotic free. We don't have to avoid GMOs because GMOs are good. We don't have to necessarily buy organic because organic doesn't mean pesticide free. There's no such thing as added hormones in chicken. So you have all of these different things that all of a sudden now some of the world's most influential people in this space are now communicating effective communication with factual tips. And it all started with one farmer opening their door. Just saying.
Just one farmer opening their door. That's literally all it takes, is the domino effect that can happen from one decision, one conversation, one invite is insane. Like that one
Mm-hmm.
invite impacted, you have no idea how many thousands of lives got impacted
Millions.
from that. And you know what? Maybe it was just that planted a ton of seeds. Maybe not a single life was changed from that, but a ton of seeds got planted. And then someone down the road had the opportunity to go and water those seeds because you planted them. And you know
Yeah.
what? 99% of the time, we're not going to know whether we're watering, planting, or cultivating seeds. Like we're genuinely not going to know most of the time. We're not going to see the reaping of the harvest of that. But we still need to be doing it. Like we still got to plant those seeds.
Yeah, well, you figure if that collaboration reached how many millions of people, if 10% of them, feel more comfortable purchasing meat, or you have so many dieting trends. Like, how do we combat the seed oil misinformation? How do we combat the people that think wheat is drenched in glyphosate? Um, the power of influence reaches millions of people. And if 10% of those millions, heck, even 1% of those people now feels more comfortable, that ripple effect has $1 billion impact on what farmers grow or what they're allowed to grow, because policy can say, hey, you know what, you're no longer allowed to plant those seeds, like literally, because the government can say, based on poor policy, based on poor influence, we have to have a positive influence and an impact, which we can easily do.
Yeah. Let's talk about policy. I would really love to go into there. That's a big realm where we need people with influence going and having these conversations with our policymakers. Start talking about that. Just chat about what that kind of looks like and what we need to be doing as farmers and ranchers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes people are just intimidated by situations. Same goes for influencers, right? Like, I mean, when I reached out to Whitney Johns, this million followers, right? I'm like, oh, she's such a big deal. She'll never pay attention to somebody like me. Same with my Burger King story. They're Burger King. They're a huge corporation. They'll never pay attention to somebody like me. It's the same thing with politics. Politicians need to hear your story, and they're not some mystical person. Like, just because they disagree with you doesn't mean we should avoid them. Quite the opposite. If a politician's out there spreading a lot of misinformation, we have to be on the front lines and build those relationships so that when poor policy or misinformation comes across their desk, you as a farmer are the first person they're calling. Or so opening your barn doors to politicians, making sure that they have you on speed dial, being there, showing up, having a seat at the table, and not to be intimidated by that situation, but to embrace that situation where you can become friends. Don't ever look at anybody as an enemy. And we're so good at that in society nowadays, right? It's us versus them. It's right versus left. It's fuck Trump. It's go Trump. It's like whatever. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be so divisive. We are the United States of America, and we all care about the same things. Like, we all want a healthy food supply. We all want healthy soil and water. We all want what's best for our future. Hey, guess what? We can do that. We just have to be kind and open our doors and don't shut people away because they disagree. Embrace that. I used to be the
Yeah.
opposite, right? I used to be the girl that would only buy organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, yada, yada, yada. And then now here I am going, actually, I don't want to buy any of that anymore because I don't like the misleading marketing. Like, I don't like the people that are saying, GMOs are the devil, eat organic. Like that's what they want you to think. They want to sell you more expensive products. I have nothing against organic, but if it was better, we'd all be doing it. So there's a place for every type of farm. There's a market for organic, there's a market for small, there's a market for large GMO. Um, but just because things are done differently doesn't mean they're done wrong. And we can learn a lot from each other united.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk just a little bit to the people that are like, "Hey, I know I need to get out there, but I'm scared or I lack confidence. I don't know what to say. I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing," especially when it comes to policy or influence on social media, influence on our communities, just things like that.
It such is so much more of a positive experience than you can ever imagine. I had the same fears and I was so scared to start. And then once you do it, it is so fun because here's the deal. We are wired as humans to put way too much emphasis on the negative. You can have a million people tell you you're amazing and have one person tell you you suck. Why do we give that one person so much of our energy? Like they don't deserve a space in our mind. Like, no, get out of my head because a million people just said you're amazing. You can be the best person in the world and somebody will find a reason not to like you. Like there's always going to be haters. There's always going to be downsides of every career, no matter who you are, what you do, when you are. And so when you're on social media and you get like, oh, that person was mean, first of all, it teaches you to have thicker skin, which is actually amazing. It teaches you how to let things go. It teaches you how to give less fucks. Can I say that? I'm going to say
Yes.
that. It teaches you how to give less fucks. And it's actually a beautiful feeling when you do let go of all of that and you just learn to have a little bit more confidence and pep in your step and you realize, wow, like who cares about that one person? Because look at all the positive that you're getting out of it. You're getting new opportunities and revenue and a fan base and people that are like, wow, I really appreciate you. And we have to put more emphasis into that and realize that like when you're out there advocating and sharing your story, guys, like it's fun. It's like building, it's getting the comment section of people that are there to support you. There's way more heartfelt and kind and good moments than there will ever be negative moments.
Yeah, there absolutely are. Can you speak to maybe the people now that have been doing it for a while? Like they're in that realm of influence. What do we need to be doing in agriculture right now? What trends are you seeing that like need to be pushed harder? What do we need to be doing? Just all of the things like that.
Yeah, so for the people that are already into it, I mean, just keep going. And I feel like any type of business, like diversification is always really good. So we've got to, I think it's important to keep up with the times. I started off on Facebook and now I'm doing like more video than I would like to, but it's just the nature of the beast. So I think keeping up with trends is important and continuing to collaborate, as collaborate, and cross posting with people and doing different opportunities like this. um, Always just putting yourself out there and staying relevant by creating that content that could, go viral and or create snippets for your listeners of like what's in it for them, for people that watch you. For people, if you think about who you follow and why, oftentimes the people you follow are people you feel like that you're like, wow, I feel like I'm friends with this person, that I really know. The people that you follow could be like, hey, I watched her graduate from college. I watched him have a baby. I watched these couples. I watched this person do this. And you're like, wow, I've grown up with this person. I feel like we're friends. And so that's kind of like how you build that following. Um, so I think continuing to just show up as unapologetically you goes a long way.
Yeah, I love what you just said about that unapologetically you because I think that's the key to it is you can't diminish your spark. You can't be afraid of like what people are going to say, what people are going to think or anything like that. Like you got to show up and you got to be you and you're going to be like I don't give a shit who likes me and
Yeah.
who doesn't. Like this is me and I'm going to show up as me and damn it, if you don't like it, scroll on past. Like, or you know what, leave a
Yeah.
hate comment because honestly, like all comments help boost my algorithm. So leave a hate comment and I'll delete it
Yeah.
later.
For sure.
Absolutely. Can you talk a little bit more about just like your advice for people that are stepping into the realm of social media and what that kind of looks like outside of just like being unapologetically you? Maybe some nitty gritty tips on like, hey, this is what we're kind of seeing right now. This is where I'm personally taking my business, how I'm diversifying right now, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, diversifying is collaborating with other influencers and doing a lot of farmers and a lot of farm influencers are doing like workshops or events or launching their own podcasts or different things they can do to diversify. But I'm most excited about the farm cruise. Farmcruise.com to book is exciting for people to come together on that as like a farm vacation. And that's what's great about being a public figure is when you're already in the social media space and you're looking to diversify, there are a number of ways to do that where you're really building that community. So that's a lot of what we're seeing is not just, hey, you have a good time playing on TikTok, you're a business owner. Like this is a media company and a brand, and this is what you do. And so helping people realize and learn, what's done, what does this look like, how is this done, is pretty awesome. So yeah, I would say just continue to go with that as some tips. What else? What was your other part of your question you had asked?
Just like I talked about diversification, any nitty gritty tips, things like that. Anything you want to dive into there, or you can also take some time to talk about the farm cruise and just that aspect of your business. I know I would love to hear more and just what you're kind of doing there because it's new in agriculture and it's something different and it's an example of taking your realm of influence and doing good with it and making more out of it rather than just social media influence.
Yeah, the farm cruise was intended to be a sense of community and building like a family within our families. So if anybody's ever heard of the Groove Cruise before, the Groove Cruise is the world's largest floating dance music festival. And the Groove Cruise has built a phenomenal community where this thing charters entire cruise ships for 72 hours of nonstop dance music and just a community. So the person that started that company is my business partner for the farm cruise. So it's my friend Jason, and the farm cruise is a way for us to start that. And so it's my first year doing it. It's the first time anybody's ever done a Caribbean cruise, the world's first floating farm conference. But more than the farm conference part, it's more about the fun and the friendships and the networking and the excitement that's going to come of this. So we're going to have game nights like trivia nights and farm tours on the islands and karaoke night and all of the things that you get from a cruise ship, like the entertainment and the dining. But then one night we're having an utterly amusing themed dress up night. So everybody is dressing up as their favorite farm animals. Um, we've got one night where everybody's wearing a funny farm t-shirt. So I think I'm going to get a t-shirt that says, screw a farmer, everyone else does. So that's my
Oh my
funny farm
gosh.
shirt night. Screw a farmer, everyone else does. Um, and so we've got like funny farm t-shirt nights. And then farm tours in the islands. We're going to have a little educational session about what farming is. We're partnered with BAMSI, which is the Bahamas Agriculture Ministries Association with like farming and aquaculture. And so we've got some really great people that are going to be taking us down an educational lane of what agriculture looks like in Nassau. But also, so there's a lot of farming stuff to be had, but also just like, hey, you know what? If you want to sit back and have a drink by the pool, we would like to serve you a pina colada. So I'm all about the puns. I have a pun cast, the herd it here, an agricultural pun cast. So I'm all about puns and just having fun, bringing people together. Now, what's cool about the farm cruise, we also have some of the biggest names of social media influencing that are going to be there. So Amanda, the Farm Fit Mama, is going to be doing morning workouts. We've got Field Rose, Randy the farmer, that's going to be doing his first concert, his live show. We've got, let's see, um, Farmer Grace is going to be there with Gavin Spoor. We've got Jimmy D. Jones. There's all sorts of great people that are going to be there from all different farming backgrounds, walks of life. So it's kind of like a meet and greet for your favorites that you follow on YouTube or whatever. So bringing all of that together to a community, but also just downtime because it's a vacation. Like if you want to just have drinks by the pool all day or go to the beach, like you can do that. So the sky's the limit. It's a fun cruise, but with a farming twist.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is literally like a perfect example of Michelle taking her realm of influence and the things that she's built in social media and the community that she's built and being like, hey, I want to do something bigger. I want to not only like have a really fun time and like have an excuse to hang out with all of these awesome people, but like do something that impacts agriculture. And I think that that's just a testament to everyone that you can do more. Like you can do, you know what? There's so much power. And I love people that just, you know what, their calling and passion is just to stay on the farm and produce for agriculture and do things there. If that's your calling, then awesome. But I also empower you that you can do more than that. You can get outside of your current realm of influence in your small towns or in your communities or stuff like that, and you can make a bigger impact for agriculture. And you know what? That's going to look different for everyone. Every single person is going to have a different story, a different path that they're going to take in that. Michelle and I can't sit here and be like, hey, here's XYZ. This is how you become an influencer and this is what you do. Everyone's going to have a different path. I'm so honest about that. And you know what? That's the beauty of it. Like there is so much out there for everyone, and like it is just it's an amazing community. Like you were saying earlier, that like once you get out there and start doing it, it is so much fun. Like,
It
and
really
the
is.
influencing community within agriculture is so supportive. Like if you are
Hmm.
out there and just sharing your story and you're like reaching out to these people and asking for information or collabs or like stuff like that, like these people are welcoming. They want you here. Like they want to do those cross posts. They want to like they want to collab together and do things and support you and be your cheerleaders. And that's the beautiful thing that we are blessed with in agriculture, that once you start doing it, it's so much fun and you have like a realm of
Hmm.
cheerleaders surrounding you while doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it really is. And to your point of having different paths, I mean, do what works best for you. You know, I mean, some people like I'm a Facebook girl. I like Facebook and Instagram. I do videos, but I'll never be like a YouTuber, right? Like that's just
Yep.
not my path. It's not what I aspire or feel like is my thing, right? Like I'll do some stuff on YouTube. I have 1,000 followers on YouTube, right? To our point earlier, 1,000 followers. It's something, it's cool, but it's not my favorite. So I just don't spend a
Mm-hmm.
lot of energy there. So for people that are thinking about starting, do what works for you. But, you know, you look at somebody like Tony Reed growing corn, he gets on TikTok and just does his rants and uses a lot of inappropriate language. And he's got millions of followers. And like, good for him. Like, if that's his niche, that's his niche. My niche is myth busting. For some people, it's, motherhood and agriculture. For some people, it's myth busting. For some, it's like life on a dairy farm. For some, it's family, it's merch, it's writing a book, it's, but just doing something that makes your heart sing, like doing something with a purpose. What helps you get out of bed every day? Like what gets you going is something that you love. And farmers will always say, we do it because we love it. Now you can take that love and share it with the world and create and share that love tenfold, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing about it is you can take that thing that lights your soul on fire and you can tenfold it. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
make it one of these amazing things that not only just provides so much like strength and community and like outside people just pouring into your life, but also it can diversify your income, provide more stability
Mm-hmm.
for your family. It can get you in front of people that you never would have met otherwise. I think that's the biggest thing for me in social media is I have met people through social media that I never would have met if it wasn't for those platforms or if it wasn't for engaging in that type of content or stuff like that. And I've created some beautiful and amazing friendships from it and gotten in front of like, I've done public speaking events and rooms that I have no business being in, y'all. Like,
But you
if you
do.
had asked me, I do. Yes, exactly. If you had asked me a few years ago, I'd have been like, you're joking. Like, that's not something that I should be speaking at. But here we are. And you know what? A big part of that is just starting and like
It's
getting the
true.
hell over yourself. Like, you gotta get out of your own head, get over yourself. And honestly, most people aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you're thinking about you. So, like, just post the damn content. And you know
Yeah.
what? Who cares what anyone else thinks?
Have fun. Yeah, I mean it's pretty awesome. But to your point too of like what like the haters, right? People put so much emphasis on the haters. Dude, it's 1%. That's the 1%. Like it's
Yes.
not even worth it like to even put any energy or space into that because I mean, yeah, raise awareness on it, but like 99%, 100% of people that they're there for you. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's true that we make wonderful communities and lifelong friendships in this industry in the media corner of agriculture and influence. I think back to some of my closest friends, like, so actually, great example. This Monday, I'm going in for a back procedure and I'm going to a doctor up in Omaha. It's like a very specific procedure. There's not a lot of doctors that do it, so I'm going to Omaha. My dear friends, two of my best friends, a married couple, are taking care of me, and they're gonna help take me to the hospital and drive me home because I'm gonna be under. They're gonna care for me during the healing from my procedure over Christmas. Okay, as two of my best friends, and guess how I met them? They hired me to speak in an event. Like 9 years ago, they started off as somebody that hired me to speak and are now two of my closest friends to the point where they're helping me heal from a back procedure on Christmas. Like, that's a friend, you know? Um, so yeah, it's true that like any type, I mean, you think for any career, who are your best friends? A lot of people will say, "Oh, I met my husband at work. Oh, I met my best friend at work. I met," it's like that with everybody, and agriculture is no exception. And it's really, really cool opportunities.
Yeah, there are so many opportunities out there for growth and expansion and friendships and relationships and all of the things that just social media and that realm has to offer. The internet, blogs, whatever that looks like for you, like it can look like a trillion different things. And you might look at Michelle and I's journey and be like, I want that to not be my path. But then you go and you look at someone else's and you're like, actually, I kind of like what they're sharing. I resonate with that. Like, that's something I like talking about. Like, these are discussions we have over the dinner table anyway. Like,
Yeah.
there are so many options for how it can look, and there is no blueprint. There is no perfect way to do it. And I think that that is equally terrifying as it is amazing. Because you know what? It's a lot of trial and error, but it's also like you get to do it your own way and screw what everyone else says.
Well, and it's like parenting, you know what I mean? Like anything you do, any type of relationship or parenting, it doesn't come with an instruction manual. You just do the best you can, and it's never going to be perfect, but it's pretty awesome. I mean, I don't have kids, but I hear it's cool. I'll take people's I'll take people's words for it because I'm like, no kids for this one. I am like anti-child for myself. But for other people that choose to do it, they love it. It's what they were born to do. Good for them. Um, and do what makes your heart sing, and that's a big part of it is family for a lot of people. So, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It all goes like I feel like everything gets rounded up into do what makes your heart sing. Like
Mm,
seriously, this life is too short to discount yourself or discount your abilities or think that you're not influential enough or you don't have the voice, you don't have the story or any of that bull hockey. Like life is too short, go share. Like
yeah,
just get out there and go do what makes your heart sing and do it big, do it loud, do it proud. And like, you're going to have an amazing group of people that come behind you because that is what agriculture is.
very true.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Michelle, we have had such an amazing conversation today. I think that you and I could probably sit on this dang podcast and yap and go back and forth about a trillion different things all day long if given the opportunity to. But I would love to start rounding out the podcast and discuss what your piece of advice is for the next generation of agriculture.
My advice for the next generation of agriculture is to realize all of the amazing opportunities that are presented here with the rise of technology and media and just everything we do, mechanics. I mean, the sky is the limit for any type of career that is out there. Agriculture has a place for you. And it's the most beautiful industry to be a part of with, I mean, people are nothing without food in their bellies. Like, we cannot sustain life without the farmer, and there's so much reward and power and influence behind that you know just like keep going, I guess, right? Just keep going and do what makes your heart sing and just dive in. I mean, it's kind of the theme of what we've been talking about, but like, stick with it. It's a really beautiful life in this industry.
Yes, it absolutely is. I couldn't have figured out a better way to round out everything that we talked about and just wrap it up in a nice, pretty bow. Michelle, if people are obsessed with everything that you're saying and they can't get enough of you, where can they follow you? Where can they find you on all the platforms? We'll obviously have all of it linked down below, but just let them know right here.
Yeah, so my website is thefarmbabe.com. If you'd like to book the farm cruise, we're almost sold out. We only have about 5 rooms left, so we're selling out very quickly. So I would encourage people to book at farmcruise.com to sign up for that. But thefarmbabe.com is my website, and then Farm Babe on Facebook is my page where most of my followers are. If you're not following Farm Babe on Facebook, which is the best platform, for me, is at the Farm Babe. So the Farm Babe on every other platform imaginable. I'm also a weekly columnist with agdaily.com. So you can, God, my Wisconsin accent, agdaily.com. That's agdaily.com. And I'm a writer for Ag Air Update magazine. So there's some articles, and you can go to my website to read more articles and watch videos and YouTube and TikTok and all the things. So I'm all over the place.
Yes, she absolutely is and does a phenomenal job at it, if I do say so myself. So, if you guys need anyone to go follow and just gain some amazing inspiration from, see that true authenticity, real life, all the things, go give Michelle a follow. Slide into her DMs if you listen to this podcast and let her know that you came from here. And as always, thank you so much, Michelle, for coming on to the podcast. And to all of you listeners out there, we will see you all next week on another episode of The Next Generation.